Welcome to Spiritual Dialogues with Father Odon de Castro. We are here at Cariana Lay Monastic Community. I'm your host, Brother Lodi, and with us is Sister Tachi. Sister?
So, Father, you're going to discuss now the Amazon synod at the Vatican. That is still going to happen, right?
So we have mentioned the fact that there are two synods that are being held, and everybody is so afraid because these two synods are going to completely destroy the Catholic Church by changing all her doctrines. You know, Protestants have only one or two or three erroneous doctrines. But these two synods are going to destroy all the doctrines of the Catholic Church. So we were talking about these two synods and the basis by which we are going to judge their errors, to correct them, so people will not be confused. And we say that not to be confused, keep in mind that the teachings of the Catholic Church comes only from scriptures and the fathers of the Church, the interpretation of the fathers of the Church. As long as you get your two doctrines from those two sources, you're okay. Okay. However, we warn everybody that these things are also found in catechisms. However, there are good catechisms and there are very bad catechisms. And the catechism of Vatican II is very bad. It has so many heresies, and it is made worse by Pope Francis by changing many doctrines from the catechism, especially removing the Catholic doctrine on capital punishment. Now let's look at the two synods. The impression they're giving us are these provisions from these two synods are just ad experimentum.
Okay.
In other words, let's try it for a while and see whether it works or not. In the Catholic Church, you don't experiment. You don't. You do what is written in scriptures and as interpreted by the fathers of the Church. No human experiment is allowed in the Catholic Church. No human experiment. Now, these synods had been condemned already by Pope Benedict when he was still Cardinal Ratzinger, head of the Congregation for the Divine Doctrine of the Faith.
Okay.
He said that this is one of the most useless element in the Catholic Church because here the bishops just go, they pat each other's back, say hello, and approve a few heresies. So he really considered it useless, and if it was up to him, he would have really removed it, abolished this bishop synod. In Vatican II, unfortunately, the synods were approved under the title of collegiality. This is one of the most pernicious doctrine approved in Vatican II that would destroy the Catholic Church. Because collegiality means that each bishop synod, like Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, the bishops of the Amazon, the bishops of Australia, which they are doing now, can make up their own doctrines. So their doctrines are no longer the doctrines of Jesus Christ as interpreted by the fathers of the Church. It's going to be their own man-made doctrines imposed on the Catholics.
So it was approved in the Vatican II that such a thing would happen. That's why they're very brave about it.
They prepared the way for it by approving the collegiality. Yeah.
I thought collegiality would just mean
Something
social
like
thing.
College of Bishops and so like
social
that.
thing.
Well, that's what Cardinal Ratzinger says. It was just a social thing that was very injurious to the Catholic Church. So that's what happened. So all the synods now are making their own doctrines. And it appeared, first of all, well, Pope Benedict did not abolish it right away. He was hoping he could use the synods to purify the teachings of the Catholic Church. So during the Bishop Synod on New Evangelization, he tried to purify the doctrines by inserting the virtue of penance as the topic of discussion, which the bishops did not discuss at all.
Yes.
Which shows you that the bishop during the synod will do what they want, not even what the Pope commanded them. And during the first bishop synod on the family, what happened is, look, what Pope Francis introduced, which is the receiving of Holy Communion of remarried Catholics, in other words, those living in adultery to receive Holy Communion, presented by Pope Francis, by the Pope, and defended by many bishops who are the followers, of course, of Saint Francis. One of
Pope Francis.
Pope Francis.
Okay.
He's his.
You said Saint. No, sorry.
Did I say that?
Saint.
Oh,
Because
well, I was hoping he would be
be
a
a
saint.
saint. Yes, we all pray
But
for
anyway,
that.
Yeah, Pope
Okay.
Francis. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, our Cardinal Tagle was on that side, trying to approve the proposal of Pope Francis. And remember that the Bishop Synod, the entire majority of them, disapproved the proposal of Pope Francis, and yet he pushed it to be implemented.
Yes.
And it's implemented up to now.
Yes.
In America, in Australia, in South America, etc.
Even here, I think.
Even here in the Philippines, the president of the Bishops' Conference at that time, Bishop Villegas, was proposing that it be imposed in the Philippines. Fortunately, we have so many Orthodox older bishops at that time, and they did not seem to follow it. So at least here it was not approved. But in parishes, it's being approved.
Yes.
No?
I've heard, yes.
So you can see what a synod can do. It can really change Catholic doctrine. It can change the teaching of Christ. It can change the interpretation of the fathers. It can change completely the church. And so in the Philippines, the Catholic Church for a long time is no longer Catholic. Because we have heresies that are being followed by the priests and the bishops and some cardinals.
Yes.
Now, that was a defect, this collegiality idea.
Yes.
And the bishops love this idea of collegiality because now they can sit down and decide whatever they want. So that was the idea ad experimentum, like the Mass. The Mass facing the people was ad experimentum. But they never
Change it back.
sat down to discuss whether it's working or not.
It just has continued.
It just continued
and
and
people
continued.
have accepted.
Yeah. And that's the whole idea. Make it an experimentum, and then
Forget
everybody
about
would
it, yeah.
everybody would just forget about it, and they would just continue doing it.
And they think, oh, it was like this all the time.
It was always like that, ad experimentum, and then it becomes ad permanentum.
Yes, yes. Okay.
So everybody is saying, oh, this is just ad experimentum. But their intention really is to make it permanent.
Yes.
That's their intention,
Yes,
really.
I think so.
So there is deceit that is coming in. And so you see a diabolical spirit that is really hovering over the Catholic Church. So in the Amazon, they gave the very poor excuse. They said, oh, because they have no priests there. They're lacking priest vocations in the Amazon. If there are people in the Amazon who wants to be converted, God will send them priests.
Yeah.
That's what Christ says. How come there are many fruits and there are very few harvesters? Because the people are not interested to become Catholics. Like the Jews. They were not interested in believing in Christ. So Christ told his apostles, stop preaching there. Go somewhere else. Go to the Gentiles. Because the Jews are not interested. And in the Amazon, they're not interested in becoming Christians. In fact, for several years, they have not converted anybody because nobody there is interested in becoming a Catholic. So the lack of priests is not because they lack priests. It's because nobody is interested in becoming a Catholic. Do you think if somebody would like to become a saint in the Amazon, Christ would not send a preacher, a holy preacher.
Yes, Father, I recall a voice talking to Saint Francis, rebuilt my church, Francis.
Yeah. And preachers and apostles were always described as sent.
Yes, sent.
They are sent by God, not by the Pope, not
Yes.
by any bishop. So if there is a lack of priests in the Amazon, it's more because the people are not interested in becoming Catholics, and therefore God is not sending. And if there is a need, Christ says, you pray. You pray. You don't start ordaining, married people or allowing priests to marry, which they're using as an excuse. They're saying they don't have any priests, so let's ordain people who are married.
From the Amazon.
From the Amazon.
That's for the start.
Or
to start,
anybody,
to
or
start.
anybody.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, these people, these married
Good,
men
good.
who will become ordained priests, will study in seminaries, and they'll be talking to seminarians who are single,
So if you can
and
be
they will
anyway,
say,
then,
hey,
okay,
you
let's-
see, we are married, we can become priests. Why do you have to be single? Why do you have to become celibate? It is all towards that direction.
Okay.
And of course, they're always saying, but these are the people of God, they're not the people of God. They are pagans. They are primitive tribes worshiping the devil, worshiping nature. You have to define properly the word people of God.
Yeah.
And the word people of God is defined as those who obey the commandments of Christ.
Yeah.
It's not enough for them to know the commandments of Christ. It is those who obey the commandments of Christ. Christ said so. Who are my brothers? Who are my sisters? Those who keep my commandments.
Yes.
Those are the chosen people of God. Those are the people of God. Not everybody.
Okay.
Only those who follow Christ.
It has to be obeyed.
Obey.
The word is very important.
Yeah, that's the word for it. Those are the words used by Christ, Those who obey my commandment. So you see, they're making so many flimsy excuses, to get what they want.
Okay.
So classically speaking, it's the classical camel in the desert who wanted to put his nose under the tent because
Yes.
it was cold.
Okay.
And and the owner of the tent allowed him to put his nose inside. And he said, a little more because it's cold outside. So, and a little more, and a little more, and a little more. And before you know it, the whole camel is inside. And the owner of the tent is outside. That's what's going to happen to the Catholic Church. The pagan practices of the Amazon and the pagan practices of Australia
Awesome.
is going to be incorporated into the Catholic Church. And before we know it, the Amazon and the Australian pagans are inside the Catholic Church, and the true members are all outside.
You wouldn't want to be with them.
No.
I don't want to be with them. So better out than in with them. It will
Well-
not be a Catholic church anyway.
Well, it's not the Catholic Church
anymore. So forget
yeah.
it. So that's their church now.
Yeah, and so notice the excuses they make and so on like that. In other words, they're using the Amazon in Australia as the reason in order to change Catholic teaching. And all of us have to be weary about this, very
Worry about it.
Yeah, because it's really changing the Catholic Church to make it either Protestant or pagan.
So, Father, as were you going to mention what you were telling us about what the Amazon wanted, but about Australia, or you want to discuss it in another episode?
Yeah, so going back to the Amazon for a short while, instead of we saying, bring the Catholic Church to the Amazon, what they're saying is bring the Amazon inside the Catholic Church.
Okay.
So Brother Lode has been saying the word conversion. Instead of converting the Amazon to Christians, they want the Christians to be converted into primitive tribes.
Okay.
Oh my God. Father, we have only 1 minute, please.
So there we have the discussion of the Amazon and the general defect with what is going on in the Vatican under Pope Francis is precisely the Instrumentum Laboris is all contrary to divine revelation, which is found in the teachings of Christ in the Gospel and as interpreted by the Fathers of the Church.
The spiritual dialogues of Father Don de Castro require us. It needs us to study more and read about Christ's teaching and interpretation of the Fathers of the Church so that we will understand the way the doctrine should work. See you again, and we will continue discussing these changes, this confusion. Stay with us. Thank you very much, sisters, brothers.
Hosanna, Hosanna.